I'd like to welcome our next panel on Is On-Demand Everything Really Necessary in Local Commerce? So welcome Mike, Rick, and Toby. Welcome. That's an applause thing. It's a little bit awkward when I'm already up here. So a couple things. Chris Spanos is not here with us today. This is Rick Fleisher from Urgently. Chris was called to the West Coast for a big, very positive client meeting situation, and Rick was already out there in Vegas, and he hustled back here for us. So we appreciate that very much.
Our pleasure.
So over the past year and more, startups everywhere have rushed to craft an Uber for X solution. And you know, it's sort of no surprise venture capitalists have been pouring crazy amounts of money into this space. So you know, it seems like there is clearly a bubble of some sort, but today we're going to talk about where and whether on-demand plays an important and lasting role in local. And clearly these guys are big advocates of it, so I think we're definitely going to be diving into where it has a place. So I'd like to start off with some introductions. You know, yourself and where your company fits, what your company does, and how it fits into the I'm going to slow down. How it fits into the on-demand space, and then your first job out of college.
Great.
So, Mike.
Okay, so my name is Mike Jaconi. I'm the co-founder.
What do we think that was? Is everyone okay? Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to try again. I don't think that was me. So my name is Mike Jaconi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Button, and we are a platform that helps connect apps. What we're doing is essentially trying to build a protocol that enables deep linking between applications based on a user's wants or needs in one experience and connecting them into a service, a marketplace that can fulfill those needs. So the on-demand economy, as the natural leader in mobile commerce, has been our first inroad into that market. First job out of college, was working in politics in Washington, D.C.
Oh, nice. Which side of the aisle should we ask?
I'm an independent. Thank you.
Okay.
There should be more of us.
Okay, Rick.
So Rick Fleisher, co-founder, EVP Corporate Development at Urgently. And Urgently is an on-demand service platform for roadside assistance. So it's also on demand and no membership is required. First job out of college was doing computer operations at Riggs Bank in DC. So if anyone's from the DC area, nice. They'd know Riggs.
That seems to be a theme. Great. Okay, Toby.
Hi, I'm Toby Hervey. I'm part of the founding team at Pager and run all of our expansion efforts, and I will be the third person on this stage to describe us as a platform for on-demand healthcare services. And what that looks like today is that you can get a house call from a doctor in less than 2 hours anywhere in New York City or San Francisco today to treat you for urgent care issues. And my first job out of college was actually here in New York City at Gilt Group. Right as they were launching Gilt Man, I joined the team helping with business development.
Nice, very good. And I'm Laura Rich, co-founder and CEO of Street Fight. We are not an on-demand company. Maybe we should be. Maybe we'll figure that out today. And I worked at Crane's Cleveland business and hosted at a jazz club in Cleveland. So it was a recession. We had to have 2 jobs. So okay, so let's dive in here. So on-demand, by its truest definition, seems to be local. You want something right where you are right now. So what would you say are the key criteria of on-demand? And then let's talk about where its edges are. So Mike, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I think, you know, to answer the question, the criteria, I think for a lot of big businesses, a lot of the leading internet companies from the beginning of the dot-com era to today are trying to find ways to tap into the physical world. And I think that the on-demand economy is probably the best manifestation of that we've seen to date. you think about it, and a lot of the services that exist today in the on-demand economy never would have been possible in the first wave of the internet. Your ability to have at any moment, through any want or need that you have, the ability to satisfy that need through the touch of a button. This is the first time in history that's all been possible. And so people call it on-demand. People skin it in a million different ways, from the sharing economy and on and on. But in reality, it's the fact that there is now a digital mesh laid over our cities that enables you as a consumer to get what you want when you want it. And I think that's the magic of this, this new world we're living in.
And any thoughts?
Yeah, I would add, it's not only the location, but available inventory, right? It's not enough to say that some businesses nearby, they need to be able to expose their inventory that's available, and it has to match the criteria of the consumer. And then if instead of just on demand, it's Uber for X, you have to layer on that visibility like we do. You actually see a tow truck come to you, the identity of the driver, just like an Uber or a Lyft. So there's,
Right.
I think that's a little bit of a difference between the Uber X versus just any on demand.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
And I think we've all mentioned consumer, or I'm about to, and for me, like on demand is almost like this emblem of like the best consumer experience, or the experience that best serves the consumer's needs and expectations. And I think the first time I ever heard the word on demand was in the context of media, right? It was about accessing whatever movies and TV shows and content that I want to as a consumer. We accept that moniker in healthcare because I don't know how many of you have had a bad experience in healthcare and finding a doctor and getting the treatment that you need or expect, or the level of care that you deserve from a doctor. But like that on-demand experience translated to healthcare, we thought and think is really powerful. But that's what it's about. It's when you want, it's what you want and when you want it. And on-demand sort of encapsulates that philosophy.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't there also the aspect of it where it's, you were saying it's sort of about inventory, but it's also supply chain management, right? I mean, that seems to be a really key criteria of I mean, that's essential, that is on demand.
Well, to your point about pushing the limits of on demand, it's how much will consumers pay for that experience, and how does that align with the real costs required to operate that business. And there may be some industries or services where the price is always, or at least for the midterm, like always at a premium, and you pay for that level of experience. There are some businesses that may be more viable and efficient, fulfilled virtually. Uber might be an example of that. Or where technology introduces enough efficiency that something can be really fulfilled on demand.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, in terms of its edges, I mean, we may be getting too far ahead of ourselves, but are there some edges you would say where, on demand, just the key criteria wouldn't be there, whether that's a type of business or a function? If not, we can come back to it.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably run through some concepts around where on demand may not exist in the future. I would say that the most, for the folks in the room, probably the most exciting battle we're watching be waged is in one of the most historic battles that has been fought already in the internet era, and that is, the resurgence of the retail category in an on-demand world.
Right.
Those of you in the room, how many of you guys know Cosmo or remember Cosmo? Hands? Okay, and any, same thing for Webvan, remember? Okay, so a couple. So the interesting part here is that one of the most famous failures in the digital era was those companies trying to deliver what consumers wanted, in real time or on demand, right? And here we are again. The exciting part, though, is that in this era, never before have you had cars and couriers, at the numbers we're seeing with the digital infrastructure
Right.
around these cities able to deliver these products. Right. And so that's, for me, that's probably the biggest hurdle, but the most exciting battle to watch.
Sorry, what is the biggest hurdle? The digital
actually
infrastructure.
Delivery of product in retail categories with that wide swath of opportunity and inventory. and being able to fulfill that in a profitable, scalable way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, mobile is really the key difference between now and the web fan Cosmo days, right? There isn't on-demand without mobile, right? It is truly of mobile. So is Google's trend of more mobile searches than desktop indicative of further consumer behavior toward a natural intersection with on-demand services? What do you say? Yeah.
Yeah.
And how are you guys sort of playing to that?
So for us, whether it's a mobile device, a tablet, or an in-car, connected car experience, people are initiating a service, and servicers also are using those same types of devices to fulfill in real time. So without mobile, the on-demand would not happen, and it's more than just the mobile phone.
It is more than just a mobile phone, right?
Yeah.
Because it has to be a certain behavior and certain infrastructure that's in there.
Yeah, behavior is key, culture.
Right,
Changing the culture that people know that they can make these service requests.
right. Well,
People that have the inventory to know I should present my inventory on these
Right.
platforms.
Well, and a culture thing is something that we talked about ahead of time a little bit too, where, you know, with doctors, it's like you have to convert people in a moment of crisis, right? If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, and to talk about mobile, so something like urgently, right? Like inherently you're on the side of a road, trapped, like with your phone and not much else, and hopefully a good signal. And if you are sick and looking for a doctor, in all likelihood you're probably at home, and maybe you're at the office, and there's a chance you're at like a hotel or somewhere else. So I think on the consumer side, while we very much like subscribe to a mobile first, school of thought, it's a little less important to us. Where the power comes in is on the provider side. It's the doctor app and being able to address patient concerns in real time on the go and be able to chart between visits and whatever. So for us, I think like mobile plays a more pivotal role on the provider side. And in terms of user acquisition and marketing, so the reality is that people don't like to engage with healthcare apps and services until a point of need. And unfortunately, if you're sick or your kid has an ear infection or a sore throat, like that point of need is like super high distress. And again, I think there's some parallels with urgently in the sense that you're trapped on the side of the road, and it's a very hard time to build enough trust to drive trial, and because they're very sensitive situations. So surfacing our services at a user's time of need is very important. So Google search is critical, and having a beautiful mobile experience that's assures everybody along the user journey that this is great and super easy and really clean and safe is really important. And building the right kind of awareness and trust and telling the story of Pager to as many people as possible in advance.
Yeah, and for us, it's not just search, which is certainly fine, or native app acquisition in some other way. It's also leveraging our API and being in context with the right partners, an automotive app, a mapping app, like we're partnered with MapQuest. They're the only mapping platform that has roadside integrated. So when you look at companies that are contextually correct travel mapping, different things, we're more than happy to integrate our roadside where it's contextually correct, which is very much in line with what you're doing for people at Button.
I mean, the adoption, the user acquisition, that is the big problem in on-demand, right? And that's what you guys are focused on.
I think that Rick's point, and you said something earlier where you said initializing the experience, and the interesting part is Google, and Laura, you just cited how 50% of their searches are now mobile. Well, there's statistics released recently that said now 50% of users perform 0 searches per day on Google, okay? And so you're seeing these statistics, and the interesting part is if all of you in the room think about your patterns of use today and how you're navigating throughout this post-search app-oriented world, a lot of times you have a want or a need or intent for something, you open the app that solves that something best, right? And in the roadside assistance on top of a mapping application or inside of a health-oriented application and the solutions that Pager provides, you have intent that manifests itself in this new disparate set of experiences. No longer do you start every journey at a search engine. And so as you see, Google in its strategy evolve, you also are starting to notice that these contextually relevant touch points into these services is becoming something that really adds value.
Right.
And that's really what we're at Button trying to pioneer, but you're seeing a lot of big companies, take steps in that direction as well.
Who are you referencing?
Well, you're seeing, inside of Google Maps, all of you can open Google Maps and now make a booking through OpenTable or book an Uber directly. You're seeing great integrations powered by Button inside of Foursquare, where you can, again, do the same exact thing. But you're seeing more and more of these services that touch, spend categories, especially that are daily, that are starting to, get themselves to touch this new on-demand economy, because every single day you're making decisions here, spending money here, and that's something that's novel and new versus the retail and e-commerce worlds that were dominated in the web world.
Yep.
Yeah, I would just say one short thing, and that is we're also seeing with certain demographics, millennials as an example, that where I'm a mature guy, I might look at Google. Millennials go, gee, there must be an app for that. And so when they go, there must be a roadside app. There's Verizon, who has a paid subscription, and then we're there. And they look at the experience, and they go, hey, great, I'll use that. Yeah. And so millennials are sometimes just going right to the app store as their point of search, which I found interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting. So a couple of things. We're talking about the consumer side of it, and sort of adoption and acquisition and what the sort of criteria are. But what about on the the supply side, right? So, you guys are working with insurance companies and auto manufacturers, maybe not insurance companies,
yep.
right? But
yeah.
you are. And so what are the challenges there in terms of the conversation, or is it a culture? Is it a sort of system issue?
Yeah, in the case of auto manufacturers, historically it's been a cost that they added to a vehicle, and the experience has not been great. So as you go up market with vehicles, they want to have a great experience. So those conversations are easy to have. Then when you look at insurance companies, some of them have their own road clubs, but others outsource it. And the interesting fact about that is when a consumer has a roadside incident, and if they're doing roadside through their insurance company, that's one of the biggest reasons people switch. You called Geico or USA or whoever, and oh my God, it took an hour and a half, 2 hours, 4 hours. Right. And they're like, you know what? Pardon my language, screw these guys. I'm gonna try something else. I'm done with these clowns. And that's a big reason why there's churn and switch in insurance.
Okay.
So
churn, so on demand helps churn.
Absolutely.
Helps with churn.
A positive experience makes a huge difference. The quickest job we've done to date, 8 minutes and 40 seconds. Talk about delighted customer. We did a job the other day, 13 minutes from request to completion. Yeah. I mean, if anyone in here has had a roadside incident, I'm sure it was worse experience than that. And so it does make a big difference.
Okay. And Toby, what about
the parallel for us is health insurance, right? So every health insurer is looking to cut costs, and the last thing they want is somebody going to the very expensive emergency room if they don't have to, and it's not a real emergency. So a solution like Pager, which is less, becomes an attractive option for those health insurance companies to offer to their members. They're adopting pure telemedicine, right? That doesn't involve the in-person house call in the same way. I think there are some questions around whether there's enough trust and a good enough experience in telemedicine that it doesn't ultimately lead to another office visit anyway, so that insurer is paying twice, and something like Pager circumvents that as well. So, similarly looking at sort of the big players in the business and thinking about ways that we, with our service and our platform, can add value to the incumbents.
Okay. We have so much to cover here, and I want to make sure that we have time for a Q&A. So there's a couple things. One of the questions that we discussed, the topics we discussed in advance, was about whether on-demand should play a role in the commerce or marketing that local businesses, brick and mortar, do in terms of, just thinking about what are the opportunities for the companies in this room. Should every brick and mortar business, should every business have some, play in the on-demand space? So.
Unequivocally, yes. I mean, how many of you are small, medium-sized businesses? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you guys should definitely.
Well,
I don't know.
I think a lot of the companies in this room, if I'm correct, are offering services to small businesses on a regular basis. So if you are already offering services to small businesses, is there something you should be doing to help, to offer them in that space as well?
I just put a slightly finer lens on that and say if they have perishable inventory. Perishable inventory being food, perishable inventory being schedule-centric talent. Hey, I've got a gap of an hour. You want to expose that available inventory.
Car dealerships?
Potentially, yeah.
No,
If they have a bay
that's not
open to get your car
perishable.
fixed. Well, if you have a bay open to get your car fixed, you might want to fill the bay and get service. But an auto dealer for sales, maybe not. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it could depend on the business because there are lots of small to medium-sized businesses offer different services, right? And some of them there could be cost savings by fulfilling them on demand. I had a very long conversation with my barber recently about on-demand haircuts and whether that makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And I don't think we concluded anything, but like maybe doing something like highlights where somebody presumably has to sit for a while and have something done. It's better to not have them take up the chair and have somebody show up, like set them up, and they can take the foil out themselves or something, and the pricing reflects the fact that they did part of it themselves. But maybe somebody wants to pay a premium for the chair, but maybe you can get more perfect pricing around various services offered by a specific business by infusing elements of on-demand. And for healthcare, right, like some of it is pure telemedicine, like any doctor practice or clinic could offer some virtual care, which is a form of on-demand care. Maybe house calls make sense for some cases, maybe over the phone makes sense for others, maybe in person makes sense for others. So within one business, there can be elements of on-demand that introduce efficiency across the board.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely. I think that the strategy for businesses is that they will almost by osmosis, adopt the various on-demand services that exist. I think you're being forced into it as a small business owner because of the landscape and the trajectory of the businesses around you in this category, in the on-demand category. One great example, all of you here can feel this. Go open your phone, search Katz's Deli on Google. You'll see underneath that a little delivery icon. Tap on that, and you'll see 4 on-demand delivery services that can deliver from Katz's Deli to you here right now. Right. So, yes, these people will get involved in the on-demand world if they want to or not.
So I guess my question is kind of, if you are already going to a local business and saying, we can offer local SEO and website building and presence management, should you also have some sort of on-demand service to offer as part of your package as well?
I mean, of course, I think if that makes sense for your client and it can add value to them, I think there's an incentive in you knowing about it and being able to help your client take advantage of it. There are great APIs out there. There are great ways to partner with these on-demand companies very seamlessly and add value.
Okay. Where do you think the consolidation is going to take place in on-demand? Are we looking at different types of services rolling up together, or just one company, like only Uber, no Lyft, or is it a roll-up of Uber, Instacart, and other, verticals?
Uber Eats, right, is a great example of them moving into the sort of food delivery game as well. I understand, they're very much sort of a tech-enabled logistics system moving something from point A to point B. So that could be passengers, it could be food. From what I know, it seems like they're very focused on sort of high-velocity items. We're not scared about healthcare because it's so specific, and who would want to deal with HIPAA and all of the other nightmarish regulations around healthcare besides us? But yeah, I think there are logical combinations of different services.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say generically Uber is, if you see them as a logistics platform, obviously they would be a generic threat to anybody in the space. I think we have some very unique assets and inventory that it's not trivial to get. So I'm also feeling comfortable in that regard. And my own opinion is that there are a ton of people in the home service space, and I think we'll see some consolidation there if I was a betting man.
And adding to that too, just real quickly. So Uber, for example, all these like day-long promotions they do. We partnered with them last year to offer flu shots for one day here in New York. So like they're connecting people with vaccinations for one day. And they do barbecues in the summer and Goodwill picking up your stuff for spring cleaning in the spring. Not that this is an Uber commercial, but I mean, and you look at Amazon and their marketplace of home services, and you've got the Handies of the world that are playing into that marketplace as well. Like you've seen sort of these platforms aggregating other platforms, and it's like platforms on platforms on platforms.
Got it.
Yeah, I think Toby hits on something that's really important, is that if we look at the largest platforms in the world, you know, Uber's grown to be outsized a lot of the largest internet companies we've all known and loved for a long time. The interesting part is I think that there will be consolidation on a platform basis, acquiring some of the categories of services that they want to offer to their already, you know, loyal customers, right? And so if you look at, for inspiration, the Chinese market, and you look at the model that WeChat, you know, has pioneered, and they get a lot of talk because they were the first to bring in basically a consolidated marketplace of services on top of a messaging layer. You obviously, if you've been reading about Facebook M, you've been seeing some of the efforts that they've been making in that path. And I think that type of consolidation on a vertical by vertical basis will be what we start to see. You saw Yelp's acquisition of Eat24. I think these are the signals that we'll see with the big public market platforms and marketplaces as they start to pick off the businesses that have proven to be profitable, that have sustainability, scalable margins that they can, you know, continue to invest in. For the guys that haven't proven that profitability, I think that those guys, you know, like most waiting games, will see if they can make money. But once they prove it, I think that the internet behemoths will come in and take them out.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've got 3 minutes left. Are there any questions? I feel like there would have been a lot of questions. No. Okay. I have more questions. Okay. So we could talk about how the regulation thing, you know, thoughts on how that'll play out, or we could talk about the best way to make money in on-demand. Take your pick. Which one?
Just a quick speed round of both?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's just do speed
best
round. Okay, regulation, how's it going to play out? Mike, go.
We're coming into a presidential year, so it will be talked about a lot. And like Washington is known for, nothing will happen for a while.
Nice. Right.
We really don't have a play in that space because all of our people are professionals and with existing
Toby.
businesses.
It's a little different for doctors as well, but I think the nature of how we define work and traditional work will change over time. I mean, the fact that healthcare insurance is tied to our employment was a tax loophole originally. It doesn't make any sense, and that will evolve.
Okay. Best way to make money in on-demand, Rick?
Basically taking a piece of the transaction. So we take the transaction from the consumer, we pay the tower in 48 hours or less, so they love us. Mm-hmm. Happens a lot quicker than other road clubs. And when we partner with people, we either give them a wholesale price or we give them a bounty to include us in their platform. Okay. Toby?
For lots of on-demand services, it's enterprise, and obviously there are caveats to that, but you follow the money. In healthcare, of course you can build direct-to-consumer businesses, but insurers and employers pay for healthcare, and
so a multi-pronged approach.
Yes.
Okay.
Channel distribution, I guess, is a more technical term.
All right, and Mike, you'll have a different answer.
I will, because I'm paid to have a different answer. No, I'm kidding. No, I think that I think truthfully that the enterprise topic, Toby, is one that has been less tapped than most of the others. One of my favorite companies in New York, and I always applaud these guys, is Managed by Q, and the fact that they, you know, have taken over the office, you know, cleaning and service, you know, marketplace in a totally unsexy industry, and now are one of the sexiest companies I know. So I think the enterprise opportunity is massive. And then I think the real way to make money is you just think about driving new users. The beauty of the on-demand world, especially when you're talking about daily transactions and getting consumers into this fold.
Right. Well, that costs you a lot of money then. I mean, that's Uber, right? Spending so much money to get. money. So that's
I will
that's
say
the thing
lessons
about
from HomeJoy, the way to make money is retain your users. So
Right.
acquiring is one thing, but then getting them to come back
Retaining
at
them.
full price is another.
Yeah, I think that's by service, right? Like if you have a great service like your two companies provide, the beauty is once you get the people in the door, the
Right.
frequency of use of these services is what makes them special.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
My second time on an on-demand panel with Toby. So thank you.